Hey guys, and welcome back to Lift Online. In this tutorial, we're going to be demonstrating for you our favorite morning mobility routine. Now you can perform this routine as individual exercises, performing 1 to 3 rounds of each, or as single exercises linking together in a nice flow. Before you get going, make sure you're thoroughly warmed up and jump straight into exercise 1. Exercise 1 in our morning mobility routine is going to be addressing the squat. Being proficient in the squat is fundamental in all movement and is particularly useful when developing your pancake stretch as well as your press to handstand. To set up for this, place the feet just wider than shoulder width with the toes just out to the side and drop down into a deep squat. Keep the weight in the heels before transferring the weight forward over one knee so that we are dorsiflexing the ankle. Hold this position for 8 to 10 seconds on each side before switching over. Repeat this for 1 to 3 rounds for a total of 3 to 5 leans on each side before moving on to the next exercise. For exercise 2, we're going to continue working through the squat, but this time we're going to go from a passive squat into an active squat and then into a forward fold. So this is a combination exercise for the hips. Come up from the passive squat, retracting and depressing the shoulder blades, lifting the bum higher off the floor so that the knees are driven outwards. This is going to create tension in your hip. From here, you're going to drive your legs up straight, squeezing your quads hard at all times and maintaining this lovely flat or slightly extended spine. From here, you're going to drop the hips back down into that active squat before repeating the movement, anywhere from 6 to 10 repetitions. For 1 to 3 rounds before moving on to the next exercise. For exercise 3, we're going to remain in the squat position, but we're going to incorporate some movement in the wrists. Getting more time in the squat is really important, so we try and incorporate that in as many of these exercises as possible. Place the elbows inside the knee, clasping the hands together. From here, you can move 30 seconds in each direction. Repeat this for 1 to 3 rounds before moving on to the next exercise. As we move into exercise 4 in this routine, we're going to be looking at some spinal waves. From the squat, you're going to drive your bum up into the air, walking the hands out in front of you. Once you reach the high plank position, you're going to set yourself. Posterior tilt, protracted shoulders with them externally rotated. This means that the elbows are going to be pointing back towards your hips. Pull the pelvis into this anterior tilt before driving back high onto the toes, flexing the shoulders, and eventually driving the heels down to the floor. From there, point back onto the toes. The pelvis is going to move into this posterior tilt as we move through flexion of the spine. Push high, down and back, flowing through that spinal wave and returning to that strong high plank position. Repeat this for 5 repetitions for 1 to 3 rounds before moving on to the next exercise. For our 5th exercise in this mobility routine, we're going to be incorporating a low lunge with a spinal rotation. Starting in the high plank position, you're going to bring one leg forward, aligning it with the fingertips of the base hands. Throughout this exercise, both of your shoulders should remain in external rotation at all times. This means the elbow of the base arm is pointing towards your hips and toes. From here, take the other arm, keeping it in external rotation, and reach towards the roof, keeping this nice spinal rotation throughout. You'll notice here Mr. Pep's back leg is fully locked out and extended at all times, and this is going to help to keep your pelvis square. Aim to perform 5 to 10 repetitions on each arm for 1 to 3 rounds before moving on to the next exercise. For exercise 6, we're now going to move from this high plank into a child's pose. From here, place the knees onto the floor, pointing the toes behind you, and slide your bum down to your heels, passing your shoulders into flexion above the head. Once happy here, move forwards, back onto the knees, onto the toes, and drive up into this high plank again, registering that connection between the hips, the spine, and the shoulders. Repeat by driving the hips back, opening the shoulders, and once again, returning back to this start position. Repeat this for another 5 to 10 repetitions for 1 to 3 rounds before moving on to the next exercise. For exercise 7 in our routine, we're now going to pass from the high plank back into the squat position. Start by walking your hands back, pushing your hips high and compressing at the waist. You'll see here Mr. Peps pressing hard through his shoulders throughout, as if he was going to do a handstand. Adjust the feet and then sit down into a passive squat. Take one hand and grab the opposite ankle, driving that elbow in to the inside of the other leg. From here, then reach tall, trying to touch the ceiling with that straight arm. Repeat this for 5 repetitions on each side for anywhere from 1 to 3 rounds, depending on your level of ability, before moving on to exercise 8. For exercise 8, we're going to be moving from the squat back into a high plank position before engaging the shoulders. Stick the bum nice and high and walk the hands out, keeping a stable shoulder blade throughout. From here, squeeze the glutes down into the floor and point the toes behind you. Lock out the arms and externally rotate the shoulders, ensuring that your elbows are pointing back towards the floor at all times. Repeat this backwards shoulder roll motion for 10 repetitions before placing your toes back on the floor, walking your hands in and driving your hips back to that start position. Walk yourself back out, keeping that nice stable shoulder girdle. Secure the shoulders in external rotation and now begin those shoulder rolls, but this time moving the shoulders in a forwards motion for 10 repetitions. Repeat this for 1 to 3 rounds before moving on to exercise 9. For exercise 9, you're going to be starting again in the high plank. Beginning the movement, you're going to take those hands back once again towards the feet, piking at the hips and keeping the legs locked out. You're wanting to do a nice forward fold here, aiming to keep the chest on the thighs. From here, you're going to roll up into this nice bodyweight Jefferson curl until you find yourself in this nice upright posture. From here, you're going to then repeat the movement in reverse, dropping the chin first and then folding through the thoracic, eventually the lumbar, maintaining locked out legs at all times. Repeat this for 5 repetitions for 1 to 3 rounds, depending on whether you're doing this in a flow or as individual exercises. Once complete, return to that squat position once again. For exercise 10, you're going to begin in the squat. Bring your arms behind you into extension, placing them on the floor behind you, with the fingertips pointing away. You're going to depress and retract the shoulders, ensuring that the shoulder is in external rotation. Once secure, you're going to drive the hips up into an easy bridge, or what we call a tabletop. From there, you're going to place your feet back down onto the floor and straighten the legs, folding forwards into this nice pike. Place the hands back behind you and repeat the tabletop. Repeat this for 5 to 10 repetitions for 1 to 3 rounds before moving on to the next exercise. For the final section of this mobility routine, we're going to be looking at a single arm easy bridge with a rotation. From your forward fold position, sit yourself back, placing one arm behind you with the fingers pointing away. Bend the knees back into that start position for the easy bridge with one arm placed out in front of you. From here, internally rotate the base arm before driving the hips up and simultaneously moving that shoulder into external rotation. With the other arm, you're going to bring that round in a nice circular pattern, ensuring that the shoulder is externally rotated and the arm is locked out at all times. Repeat this for anywhere from 5 to 10 repetitions on each arm for 1 to 3 rounds. Once complete, you can pop yourself back into the squat, fold the chin forwards and allow yourself to calmly come up in this nice Jefferson curl. Because we started this routine standing, it's always nice to return to that position. And that completes our morning mobility routine. Well done, guys. You've completed the morning mobility routine. As you become more proficient in this routine, we'd expect you to add more repetitions to each exercise and then link these exercises together in a nice flow. You can perform this routine every day, and once you get more proficient, actually use this routine as a dynamic warm-up before taking part in any of your skill or strength-based sessions. As always, if you had any issues with any of the exercises in today's tutorial, then please drop us a line at info@liftthemovement.com and we'll be happy to answer those questions for you. Remember, if you're filming yourself performing any of our routines, tag us on Instagram at lift.themovement and we'll be sharing the best of our community. Take care.